Hi everyone. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about my experience with movies. As long as I can remember, I always loved movies. When I was a very young child, I had a lot of VHS of Disney movies that my parents bought me. Um, I remember that I was constantly watching TV. I was very close. I was watching very movies very close to the TV, and my parents constantly told me that it wasn't good for my eyes, and well, I guess that it didn't help. But a couple of years later, started having struggle seeing from a certain distance, so I became short-sighted and started to wear glasses. Um, so one of the things that I did um, is that I watched movies, a lot of movies that were intended for much older audiences. Even things like horror films. That could be probably around 18 years old and more. Really, some pretty frightening films. And of course, my parents didn't want me to watch those films, but I kept pushing, and I did everything that I could to. I annoyed them, but I didn't stop because I absolutely wanted to watch those films. At some point, they gave up, and they allowed me to continue to watch those films, even if they didn't want me to. Um, so for a young kid, this is those films are very can be very frightening, and I started to get some terrible nightmares. Okay, so I don't remember the number of times that I got killed by Michael Myers and some other figures in our movies. It was really absolutely terrifying. So I guess that my parents were right. That kids shouldn't watch stuff like that. And if I had kids, I definitely will do everything that I can to try to prevent them from watching films like that. I just don't think that's a good idea. But yeah, since I know what it's like. But one of the things that I realized though is that since I was so used to watching films like that as a child, even before high school, um, when I continued to watch horror films much later in my life, I almost never got scared anymore because I became such a veteran that it just doesn't work. It's today I wish that I could watch an horror movie that could scare me even a little bit, like some serious scares, and it just doesn't work anymore, and hasn't been working for more than 1 decade, I think. Yeah, some had like one jump scare, but a little bit it was very few films made me feel scared whatsoever. So at that time I was obviously I was watching movies on TV, but I was also renting a lot of films at Blockbuster. Remember Blockbuster? Um, well, for those of you that remember that, it was really a great experience at the time. Um, Going out there, finding some VHS to rent, and sometimes I had a free movie, and sometimes it was like a surprise, like you got a free movie, and I had to find another one. It was truly a great experience, though of course today this is completely dated. But I'm very happy to have experienced that because in the future nobody will. And yeah, that was great. So this continued in my adolescence. And what I can say is that one of the things that I love the most about movies is that they made me dream. Okay, they give me some hope. When I was watching a lot of films, in some of those films where the the primary character or some other characters are trying to get a girl or something, this is definitely something that gave me some hope because I didn't have a girlfriend and I still don't. So I saw myself as the guy that was actually getting the girl, and this is something that gave me some hope, made me feel a lot better. I definitely had some crushes for some actresses. It was really something that helped me go through some very difficult things like bullying. So I continued to do that, and I still rented a little bit, but not as much in high school. And I was mostly watching movies on TV. So when I dropped out of high school, this is when I started downloading a lot more films illegally. Okay, I started downloading those films while still watching some on TV. So it wasn't a lot, but I still did it. It was something that I was getting used to. Sometimes I was even downloading films that were available on TV. It's just that I wanted to see them alone. Didn't want to be disturbed by anything, so I wanted to be alone in my room watching those films. So a couple of years after that, this is when I started to subscribe to IMDb. I started to rate movies, all the films that I was watching, and I started to become more and more obsessed with movie lists. IMDb has a top 250 list, and other websites that have some movie lists. So I started to watch a lot of classics. First time in my life, I looked at those lists and I watched a lot of classics, and especially something that I didn't do whatsoever at the time was to watch foreign films. So I started doing that too, and I was starting to become more and more obsessed. But at that time, I was still mostly playing video games, so I was not there yet. It took me a little bit more time, probably a couple years, that I started to reduce video games, start to watch a lot more movies. Okay. And it reached a point where I started watching one movie a day. Then 2 movies a day. Then for 2 or 3 months, 3 movies a day. Okay, it started to become very extreme. I had 1 or 2 years where I watched who knows how many hundreds of films. It had to be more than 500, if not 700. Who knows? I didn't check, but it was freaking extreme. And I had to find a way to reduce that because it was just too much. And that's what I did. I gradually reduced it. So I reduced it to 2 films a day. Then I came back to 1 a day, then a couple films a week, then 2 a week, 1 a week with some exceptions, and relapses, obviously. So at that time, when I started doing that, first couple of years, it was an incredible experience. Like, it was so incredible for me to watch movies, to experience those films. Unfortunately, then I started developing mental disorders, which also led to light sensitivity. So it made it much less pleasant. It became much more harder to watch movies, to concentrate. For a lot of films, I was unable to concentrate for the entire length of the film. I just couldn't do it, and the experience was just not the same anymore. But I still continue to watch films, obviously. And one thing I want to mention is that when it comes to cinema, to going to the theaters, even if I always love movies, for some reason, I don't remember going a lot to the theaters. I don't know why, but it's not something that I did a lot. Okay, at that point, I was still obsessed with movie list, and I'm still obsessed, you could say, today. But the thing is that since I've seen so many films on those lists, the movies that are remaining, and we're not talking about entertaining films here. We're even talking about a lot of films that don't even deserve to be on those lists. And it's just even harder to watch them. But I still watch them once in a while. What I try to do today is to watch around 20 new films a year, no matter what happens, and to watch at least, to watch one film a week. Okay, for me, it's like a reward, though. I cannot really call them rewards because, like I said, they're almost never entertaining, unfortunately, since I watch more films on lists than films that I necessarily will enjoy, because I really like to evaluate movies. I don't do movie criticism or anything, but I do take some notes, and I really like to have opinions on those movies and to try to judge them in different ways. And at that time, this is when I started to fantasize a lot about being like a movie critic or even a movie director. But since this is not something that will be useful enough for humanity, I cannot really do it. But if I had in another life, this is definitely something that I would love to do because it became such an incredible passion. It's still you could say my biggest passion today, since I stopped playing video games. But I hope that I am not going to get addicted again, because it was pretty bad. I had some phases, and sure, I had some trouble last year, but some relapses, 2 big ones with Netflix. I actually paid for Netflix only twice, so I watched around 10 films or more, binged twice. So yeah, it's disappointing, but at least it's just twice. So could be much worse. When it comes to Prime Video, I had a free trial, and I watched like only 1 or 2 films, and I got it recently again. I got another trial for some reason, so I may watch a couple, but I don't expect nothing too dangerous here, because I think that Netflix, Canadian version of Netflix too, is much better than Prime Video anyway. So I'm not too scared about that, though it's still something. So that could happen, who knows? Okay, sometimes you have a phase where there's a lot of films that may come out around the same time, and it's hard to not watch multiple, a lot more in a month. Who knows? But I don't think that is necessarily going to be a big deal, because I have no plan, like I said, of stopping to completely watch or almost completely watch movies, because it's not as dangerous as video games. Okay, on average, movies they last less than 2 hours, so it's nothing like video games. So I'm not too scared when it comes to that, since I've managed to completely get rid of video games. This is not a worry that I have right now. So who knows what the future holds for me when it comes to cinema. Even if it's not something that is useful for humanity, I'd say that there's some things that we can do that can be useful with movies, for sure. It's just that there's so many other things that are much more useful that I can do and offer to the world. But I'd like to help cinema, that's for sure. So I definitely have some ideas. And I definitely want to help this industry in the future. So also want to mention that I am soon approaching my 33rd birthday, and I've already watched more than 3,000 movies. It could even be around 3,500 movies. If not 4,000, who knows? It's probably not around 4,000, but there's still a chance, because I haven't managed to find all the films that I've watched in my life. So that's pretty extreme for someone that you also have to take consideration that I played a lot of video games too. So I have truly never worked in my life. So that's about it. It was to give you a pretty good idea of what I experienced in my life with movies. I hope that you enjoyed it, and see you in another video.